So we're going to start this week with some top level conversation. We're talking about decentralized identities. Algorand has joined the Decentralized Identity Foundation to advance digital identity standards. Now, I've studied this subject of digital identity for a number of years. More personally, I didn't want to bring any of that government controlling my life energy to the channel. We are aware that these technologies can be used for positive and negative outcomes. But this relationship that Algorand is building with the Decentralized Identity Foundation is positioning the technology not just alongside Web3 related or blockchain related companies, but traditional tech bodies as well. And that's what I want to focus on in this episode. Before we dive deep into this, because we're going to go there, let me introduce myself. My name is Wade. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. Since 2019, I've researched over 1,000 digital assets, and the number one reason I run this show is to share all that information with you. Because obviously, this crypto stuff can get a bit out of hand. At the end of this episode, I'm going to share with you the DHN Crypto Starter Kit. You can also access it in the description under this video. But simply, that's your toolkit to get started in the crypto space. Everything in those 6 pages will save you years of time. But because the topic is a bit more dense, let's jump right into the meat of it. So I can share with you who this ties Algorand closer to, as well as give you an idea of the advancements that have been made in regards to digital identity. It's like I said, there was a point when I was in this space where I was actively tracking a list of assets that focused on digital identity. Back during the pandemic, there was a lot of applications popping up in relation to vaccine verifications. So that's kind of what got the ball rolling for me. And I'm always curious to know what your thoughts are. So let it be known down in the comments. But let's jump into this here. The Algorand Foundation has joined the DIF, strengthening its commitment to open standards in digital identity. This move follows the development of DID Algo, a decentralized identifier built on Algorand. Algorand's DID method exemplifies the Foundation's commitment to standardized identity solutions, as DID Algo was built to the DID spec from the World Wide Web Consortium. So this foundation can be compared to, honestly, the ISO TC307 conversation, in the sense that they're a group that looks to establish standards for the use of digital decentralized identity technologies. Whether they come from the blockchain space or the traditional space, this is a body with very heavy players in the tech industry that are putting down standards and frameworks for future products to come into this market. So to see Algorand in this position so very early on is obviously a very good sign. And to the point of the DID algo, when I looked into it on the GitHub, according to GitHub anyway, it has only been implemented on the blockchain for a matter of 6 months. I'll also show you in this episode that digital ID, decentralized identities, is not new to Algorand. They've been messing with it for a number of years, dating back to 2020. But let's get a little bit more detail on the DID and the Care wallet, which is the application that runs on Algorand that will be wrapped up in this entire decentralized identity pilot or project, if you will. The implementation of DID Algo enables individuals and organizations to generate their identifiers using the Algorand blockchain, providing a secure and permissionless system for identity management. The method supports both direct identity creation and third-party verification, adding flexibility to identity management approaches. So, a few days ago, we did an episode in relation to XRP, but I pulled up the report from the U.S. Blockchain Coalition, the state of Web3 here in the United States. What I found was that there are a number of federally funded initiatives centered around decentralized identity. And I'm also going to show you how in Congress there's a bill that has been put forth that looks to improve the existing digital identity infrastructure here in the United States. So again, reading the headline on the surface may not seem like it's a lot, but when you track the players and you measure the progress of decentralized identity in both the blockchain and the traditional tech world, you find some pretty insightful things. Now, DID is already being used in Care Wallet, which enables survivors of natural disasters to quickly confirm their digital identities and get efficient access to the aid and recovery resources they need across multiple organizations and entities. DIF leads the development of decentralized identity infrastructure through technical specifications and open standards. The organization coordinates engineers and technical teams worldwide to create specifications for digital identity systems that work across different platforms and technologies. DIF is building an ecosystem where individuals and entities control their digital identifiers without relying on centralized systems. So, something else to keep in mind in discussion in relation to decentralized identity is the fact that it isn't just me and you. It isn't just the exposure or protection of our personal data when we have interactions online. These digital identifiers, as you can see here through the list of working groups from the DIF, can be applied to numerous use cases here. As a matter of fact, one of the digital ID applications that Algorand is working on outside of the Care Wallet actually focuses on the supply chain. It's called Dust. We'll touch on that before we get out of here. But you'll notice when you go over to the DIF website, you'll see different working groups around different use cases for decentralized identity. And I want you to just be aware of what those use cases are, so that way you have the full understanding here. It isn't just a government control tool to track and trace everything that we do. What we're looking at is the formation of new digital infrastructures that have the goal of enhancing the processes that we already have today. That's the way that I look at these things. But when you take a look at the members for the DIF, this is when the conversation gets a bit bigger. Obviously, you see here Microsoft, Consensus, Civic. That was one of the assets I used to follow in relation to digital IDs and vaccine verifications. GS1 is on here. Hedera, New ID. Why does that sound so familiar to me? I'll look it up on a different time. But GS1, prominent in the supply chain space. You see Ethereum Enterprise Alliance there, Arc Block, Input, Output, Hong Kong. So Mr. Hoskinson is involved in this as well. And to that point, it raises the DREC Alliance up, because part of what they wanted to offer was a set of technical standards that will support the development of applications that are geared towards securing and protecting personal data when used online, or in the event that you're transacting on a particular network and let's say you make a mistake. It happens all the time, and you want to be able to recover whatever asset you were transferring. That's what the DREC Alliance was essentially. That's what they're trying to position themselves to be, as purveyors of that type of technology. So they're attaching themselves to this foundation is going to be a major ally for them. I'm assuming that resources, information can be shared between the DREC Alliance and the DIF. But you also see here Earth ID, another major player in the digital identity space. If I'm not mistaken, a few years back, Ripple was involved in decentralized identity as well in relation to payments transactions. So, again, I want you to understand that Algorand joining this decentralized identity foundation is placing them in front of prominent tech figures, prominent tech companies with the ability to influence the industry, especially when it comes to digital ID. In particular, when you look at the partners here, OpenID, I'm going to jump over to the website here. And for the sake of time, I won't pull it up here, but you can find the story. from February of 2007, where OpenID launches their 2.0 version of their software. And the first two backers for OpenID were Google and Microsoft. Now, since then, Microsoft has taken OpenID and essentially made it one of their flagship products. So that brings into the discussion corporate use cases. I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you use a communication tool like Slack or Signal, something like that, to get in-company communications, right? Well, oftentimes you have a digital ID that you must use to access that communication channel. What's essentially trying to be done here is the expansion of that same thing in a lot more commercial use cases. Let's say in collaboration with e-commerce, stuff like that, right? Or even blockchain games. But the relationship between Microsoft and OpenID was very interesting to me because, like I said, I've done a bit of research on digital identity in the past. And obviously, the number one name that pops up is Mr. Bill Gates. And since we're talking Microsoft, we got to get his perspective on it, I think. And I found this article here. Don't worry, we'll go back to what that was in just a second because that ties it back to the States. But last month, October 15th, Mr. Gates published in his blog this story here: planes, trains, and smartphones. The future of public infrastructure is digital, efficient, and for everyone. So if you don't know, for a few years now, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have been working on something called digital public infrastructure. I first discovered that when I got into the decentralized identity conversation and trying to find out who were the non-blockchain players involved. I'll tell you who the number one player is. It is Microsoft. And the reason why is because of what Bill Gates is attempting to do. Now, in this particular blog post, he gives us an example of where this is already being used. And that's the sole reason why I'm sourcing from this blog. I am in no way trying to endorse or support what this man is up to. But he highlights the digital ID system in Aadhaar, India, which gives every resident the ability to prove who they are, while its unified payments interface facilitates instant payments via mobile phone. So the unified payments interface is India's countrywide national instant payment network that has been in operation for almost a decade now. When I tell you that certain countries have already made the jump to ISO 20022, India is one of them, and it was largely in part due to this unified payments interface. So what he's getting at here, what he's highlighting in, per se, is that these programs have expanded access to financial services dramatically. The proportion of adults with digital bank accounts nearly doubled, reaching 78% in just 10 years, and women's account ownership tripled, which eliminated the gender gap in account ownership entirely. So I bring that up to highlight the fact that it's not just about the control of our personal information and tracking everything that we do. These digital identities represent not just people, but assets. And we talk a lot about the tokenization of real world assets. Well, digital IDs are the ultimate way to do that. If we're not talking finance, the other real world asset is data. And digital IDs, decentralized identities, are how you tokenize that data. That's how I want you to look at that, guys. And he doubles down on that here. A good digital ID system, for instance, lets people choose what professional information to share with and whom. It doesn't force anyone to participate. It offers tools they can opt into because of the many benefits. So I'm going to share this with you just really quick. If you are completely new to the channel, I have a second channel that I started a while back. It's called DHN Crypto Docs. But I like to cover deeper stories and also exercise my video editing skills. But I put together this piece on Africa. And in the first minute or so, minute and a half, they talk about, I start with a story centered around blockchain ID credentials. There's a young woman named Elsa. She inherits some land from her father. The problem was her father didn't get the proper documentation. It was all in paper, and that paper got lost. So when he passed away, she wanted to get benefits from the land. She goes to the government to try to extract those benefits. She couldn't do it because they didn't find any record that that land belonged to her family. Had there been blockchain involved, would have been a completely different story. So again, when I say that there are levels to this digital identity thing, I mean there are. And bringing it back to the United States, there's apparently a bill going through Congress right now called the Improving Digital Identity Act that looks to improve upon the existing digital identity infrastructure here in the United States. And it specifically talks about the driver's licenses, the state ID side of it, the permits, licenses, things like that, right? There are certain states already, as it says here, currently 13 states offer mobile driver's license, a type of digital ID, and have faced challenges such as interoperability, accessibility, usability, and trust. So the existing decentralized identity, well, we can't even call it decentralized, but the existing digital ID infrastructure here in the States is facing some challenges that can obviously be solved by blockchain technology. And to our benefit, we now have a pro-crypto government, which means that bills like this have a lot more favor. So this was put forth by Representative Bill Foster, Democrat out of Illinois. Although he's a Democrat, this pro-technology bill, especially once it meets the pro-crypto Republican that will probably have to sit next to him to discuss this bill going forward, I think that's going to spark an interesting discussion. I genuinely do. So again, this is more so a piece, an awareness piece to let you know that Algorand is tapping into something that has been brewing behind the scenes for quite some time. Outside of that, I would like to call that commercial, right? Commercial applications for digital ID. But what about some municipal, government related? Well, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they have these digital identity guidelines that they've been working on for quite a while now. Recently, as of this summer, they plan to tweak the strategy, tweak the framework a little bit to incorporate public services, such as public benefit programs. They state NIST will adapt its digital identity guidelines to support public beneficiary programs, including those used to pay for food, housing, and medical expenses. The agency is working with the Digital Benefits Network and the Center for Democracy and Technology on the 2-year project. It comes amidst concerns around fraud and cyber attacks on government benefit programs. So we all remember, everybody started a business back during the pandemic. That's why all them PPP loans got sent out. Some of that money went to fake companies. Some of it even went to deceased individuals. So obviously, yeah, there is a problem. And NIST is the one organization with the ability to solve it. When it comes to technological advancements here in the United States, they're the organization you truly need to know about. So they have that for the public benefits in relation to digital ID. Again, more emphasis on what other ways this can be implemented. Biden administration allocating $300 million to help federal agencies modernize ID verification technology. When I read through this story, it incorporated the Department of Defense, USDA, Department of Commerce, Department of Health and Human Services. That funding is supposed to go to all of them to improve their digital ID systems. This is a report from March of 2023. But there's another leg to this. And you may have noticed since then, though, something called Real ID. When you go to check up state-related benefits online, that's part of that, right? But there's another leg to this. It's called disaster relief. Because recently, earlier this year, Congress allocated $20 billion to FEMA. Well, wouldn't you know it, they done ran out of that money already. Now, why would you run out of $20 billion? I know there's been a lot of storms and stuff occurring this year, but if you're running out of $20 billion and you're already asking for 80 to 90 billion more and the calendar year isn't even up yet, there's something in your system that ain't working right. I bring that up because Algorand, once again, have been thinking along the same lines. So this was published in May of last year, how blockchain is transforming disaster relief. This is going to bring us a little bit more insight on that CARE application, as well as the company behind it. So a year ago, this would make 2022, the Algorand Foundation teamed up with St. Vincent de Paul and national voluntary organizations active in disasters to create technology that would dramatically change the way that assistance is delivered. The foundation invested in AidTech, a cutting-edge technology company, to build a wallet for disaster survivors with the objective of changing the way disaster assistance is delivered. The CARE Survivor Wallet, a mobile app, provides survivors with a decentralized digital identity, which allows them to receive and manage relief funds through a wallet management portal. So I want you to take notice of the adoption model here. The independent company, in this case would be AidTech, wanted to build a wallet, and the tech stack that they used to build that wallet was Algorand. I want to highlight that at every point that I can, because in this bull run, I'm going to get people to understand that. We're entering the age of utility. You got to understand the adoption model. People want so bad for this to be a Microsoft Algorand direct thing. Bill Gates came out and said this morning, I'm using Algorand for everything. It's never going to be like that, guys, unless you're in Ukraine and you're using stellar lumens. But I want you to understand that adoption model because it gives you the best understanding of how we're moving throughout this space. Now, I like how they mention this here. They talk about the pilot and specifically the time it takes from a survivor requesting aid to that aid being delivered has been decreased by 70%. 70%. Pretty sure FEMA could use a 70% decrease in cost for sure. And to that point, in last year, they launched with the Disaster Services Corporation Society in Tennessee and Florida, cost savings to be more than 50% of the direct cost. So, to my understanding, there is a strong market for what Algorand is getting ready to get involved with, because if FEMA is already asking for more money, it's obviously an indication that their systems aren't as efficient as they used to be, and it's time for a change, right? Well, wouldn't you know it, going down here, it continues. Hundreds of more survivors will be onboarded to the CARE app in Kentucky, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi through NVOADs and its 120 partners. These pilots will be done in several places in conjunction with both FEMA and the American Red Cross, the two giants engaged in disaster relief efforts across the United States. So this was 2023. And when we go over to their website, AidTech's website, it's very small, not a whole lot to really dig into, with the exception of these trusted partners. You see here, Walmart, Amazon Business, Visa, Home Depot. Let's start with Visa first. So when you scroll down, you'll see that they offer you a digital wallet. And you can see the digital Visa card there. And that allows you to make use of services from their e-commerce partners. In this case would be Amazon and Walmart. Now, I didn't even know this about Walmart, but apparently they have a .org. They have an organization focused on philanthropy, but they also help with disaster relief services as well. So this is another example of Walmart getting just that close to blockchain technology without people saying it's blockchain technology. Honestly, you could stretch it and say Walmart is making use of Algorand's technology with this CARE wallet. That would lean to the adoption model. Walmart went to the independent AidTech who developed the wallet. The wallet, a toolkit in the wallet, is the Algorand blockchain. That's that model again. Now this story here, to go on side of the pilots that was ran in 2023 in collaboration with FEMA, or in coordination with FEMA and the American Red Cross. We jump forward a year, June of 2024, and in collaboration with the Red Cross and FEMA and other organizations, they launched the American Response and Resiliency Program. This was earlier in the summer, guys, and it was anticipated for the late summer, fall weather season that we were going to have. So this would imply that this application was used in the most recent hurricane events that we had. We can safely assume that, because as it goes into describe here, the platform utilizes the Algorand blockchain to deliver aid faster. The CEO from DSC, Elizabeth Shear, states, where it used to take weeks, if not months, we can now provide support to survivors in hours, not minutes. This speed, combined with the ability to personalize purchases, restores dignity to survivors, making them active participants in their recovery. The Care Survivor Wallet is backed by collaborations with organizations such as the American Red Cross, Amazon Business, Catholic Charities, Home Depot, Islamic Relief, National VOAD, Mennonite Disaster Service, the Salvation Army, and Walmart.org. So, what's being created here through the Care app is an ecosystem for disaster relief that will be several times more efficient than what FEMA is already offering. And if FEMA is showcasing that they're having problems managing their money, among other things, I think it's good to see that FEMA has turned their tone on blockchain and are starting to look into newer ways to improve their system. Simply put, guys. Now, like I said, Algorand has messed around with digital identity in the past. 2021, Linux Foundation announced Disney ID Foundation to develop and enable self-sovereign identity credential network that ran on Algorand. 2022, Algorand funds Flex ID to offer Africa's unbanked self-sovereign identities. This seemed to have been more of a test pilot situation, because looking into it now, I really couldn't find a lot. However, it was successful. Flex ID did go on to work with other crypto-related companies since then. And then the supply chain application that I mentioned, Dust Identity. So Dust is leveraging Algorand to provide scalable and tested methods to authenticate physical objects and validate genuine transactions on chain. Their work on the Algorand blockchain allows global organizations to utilize their contemporary solutions to ensure digital integrity, physical security, and end-to-end visibility of their supply chains. Listen, I touched on a report in a recent episode from the U.S. Blockchain Coalition, State of Web3 in the United States. There are multiple federally funded initiatives centered around decentralized identity, and we will be exploring them in the coming weeks. So, with that, guys, that's all I got. We're approaching our limit on time here. Again, don't forget to download your DHN Crypto Starter Kit. The link to that will be in the description, as well as links to some of the tools that I've used in my many years in this space. That'll be in the pinned comment. With that, y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.